The first thing Imani Okoye saw was a man's hand disappear beneath the black water. For half a second, she stood frozen beside the riverside railing, trying to understand what she had seen. Then the hand surfaced again. Only once. Imani dropped her bag. She was already running before fear had time to argue with her. A black sedan sat crooked farther along the service road, one front wheel crushed against a damaged barrier. Its headlights pointed toward the river at an unnatural angle. The driver's door hung open. Nobody was inside. Below the railing, a dark shape was being carried toward the concrete embankment. Imani reached the emergency ladder and looked down. A man was fighting to keep his face above water. He was losing. She shouted for him to hold on, but his head barely turned. Whatever strength he had used to survive the crash was almost gone. Imani kicked off her boots and climbed down. The river hit her like a physical blow. Cold drove through her trousers, her coat, her skin. Her lungs tightened so violently that instinct told her to climb back up. She kept going. The stranger drifted close enough for her to catch the back of his coat. His weight nearly pulled her away from the ladder. Imani locked one arm around the metal rung and dragged with the other. His shoulder hit the concrete ledge, then his chest. Then she managed to pull enough of him onto the maintenance platform to use both arms. They collapsed together. The man did not move. Blood mixed with river water near his temple. More had soaked through the side of his white shirt. Imani pressed shaking fingers against his neck. She could not find a pulse. Panic tried to take over. Training she had almost forgotten took its place. She rolled him onto his back and began compressions. The river slapped the concrete beside them while she counted. 30. Airway. Breath. Again. Nothing. She pushed harder. Her wet sleeves dragged against his chest. Her hands were losing feeling. Still nothing. Come on. She pushed again. The stranger convulsed beneath her. Water burst from his mouth. He coughed, twisted, and dragged air into his lungs with a sound so broken that Imani almost cried from relief. She rolled him onto his side. For several seconds, all she could do was hold him upright while he fought to breathe. Then his eyes opened. Dark, unfocused, yet strangely alert. Even half drowned, he was studying her. Not as a frightened man studies the person who saved him. As a dangerous man studies a stranger he has not decided whether to trust. His hand closed around Imani's wrist. The strength surprised her. His lips moved. She leaned closer. Don't trust them. Imani frowned. Who? His fingers tightened. The first person who calls me family. Then engines sounded above them. More than one. Headlights swept across the railing. 3 black vehicles stopped along the service road. Doors opened almost at the same time. Men in dark clothing stepped out. The stranger looked toward the lights. Something changed in his face. Not relief. Fear. That frightened Imani more than the blood. His eyes closed. Footsteps struck the concrete stairs. Fast. Precise. The first man who reached them was broad-shouldered, dressed in a black overcoat, and completely composed. His gaze went to the unconscious man, then to Imani. For the briefest instant, relief crossed his face. It disappeared immediately. Step away from him. Imani stared at him. I just pulled him out of the river. Step away. For more men were descending behind him. No one looked like a paramedic. 2 carried a medical stretcher as though they had expected to need one. Imani rose slowly. Water streamed from her clothes. Who are you? The man gave her a name. Park Doyen. Nothing else. His attention shifted to the injured stranger while the others lifted him onto the stretcher. Nobody asked what happened. Nobody called an ambulance. Nobody called the police. The efficiency of it bothered Imani. Then Doyen looked at her again. He wanted to know whether the man had spoken before losing consciousness. The question came too quickly. Imani remembered the warning. Don't trust them. She told Doyen the stranger had barely been conscious. Doyen studied her long enough to make it clear he did not fully believe her. One of the men adjusting the stretcher exposed the blood beneath the injured man's shirt. Doyen's face tightened. Only then did Imani understand that the river had not caused all of those injuries. The man had been hurt before the car ever went through the barrier. Someone had tried to kill him. And if you're already wondering why saving a dying man would become the worst accusation Imani Okoye had ever faced, welcome to Afro K Timeless Stories. If this is your first time here, subscribe so you do not miss the Afro-Korean love stories we tell about people who find each other when love seems almost impossible. Because Imani had no idea that the stranger she dragged from that freezing river belonged to a family powerful enough to turn one act of mercy into a war. Less than half an hour later, Imani was sitting inside a private medical residence she had never agreed to enter. Her wet clothes had been replaced with plain gray trousers and a sweater. Her phone and handbag rested on the table in front of her. The door was not locked. That somehow made the room more disturbing. It suggested the people outside did not believe they needed locks to keep her there. Through a panel of frosted glass, she had seen doctors, medical equipment, and men in suits moving through a building that looked more like an expensive home than a clinic. Nobody had taken the stranger to a public hospital. Nobody had called emergency services. When Imani demanded a leave, Doyen simply told her she could not go yet. He returned 20 minutes later, carrying her identification card. By then, his people had already confirmed her nationality, employment, home address, and immigration status. The interrogation that followed was calm enough to be insulting. Where had she been going? Why had she taken that route? Had she known the injured man before that night? Had he given her anything? Imani understood quickly that Doyen already knew most of the answers. He was not trying to discover who she was. He was trying to discover whether she was lying. She answered only what mattered. Then a woman entered. Han Mira did not look like the mother of a man who had nearly died an hour earlier. She looked immaculate. Black coat, pearl earrings, perfect posture. Only one detail betrayed her. Her thumb kept pressing against the side of her index finger whenever she thought nobody was watching. That tiny movement told Imani there was fear beneath all that control. Mira looked at Imani's borrowed clothes, the damp hair, the damaged boots drying near the wall. Then she asked why Imani had gone into the river for a stranger she did not know. The question was so absurd that for a moment Imani thought she had misunderstood. She explained that the man was drowning. Mira asked whether she had known who he was. Imani had not. That seemed to trouble the woman more, not less. Then Mira placed a thick cream envelope on the table. Compensation, she called it, for the ruined clothing, the inconvenience, the discretion that would be required afterward. Imani looked at the envelope, then at Mira. Understanding arrived slowly and then all at once. This woman thought she was buying silence from somebody who had arranged the rescue as an opportunity. Imani pushed the envelope back. Myra's expression hardened. She told Imani that everybody wanted money. Imani refused again. The temperature in the room changed. Doyen, who had spent the last hour suspecting her, began watching with new interest. Mira tried another approach. There were women, she implied, who would spend years trying to get close to her son. Imani did not even know his name yet. That did not matter. In Myra's world, proximity to Kang Jae-hoon had value. Therefore, anyone near him must have wanted something. Imani stood. I would have pulled anyone out of that river. It was the only explanation she intended to offer. Mira did not believe her. Not yet. Doyen's phone vibrated. He looked down. For the first time that night, his composure cracked. Kang Jae-hoon was awake, and he was asking for the woman from the river. That request changed everything. Mira had intended to remove Imani from the story before Jae-hoon ever learned her name. Now Jae-hoon had placed her directly in the center of it. Imani did not want to see him. She wanted to go home, shower, sleep, and pretend none of this had happened. Doyen asked rather than ordered. That distinction mattered. 2 minutes, Imani agreed. The recovery suite was hidden behind biometric doors. The man on the bed looked very different from the one she had pulled from the river. He was clean now, bandaged, paler than before, still dangerous. His name was Kong Jahun, 36 years old, the eldest son of Kong Seongo. Publicly, his family controlled shipping companies, security firms, construction businesses, private equity interests, and charitable foundations. Privately, the Kong name carried another kind of weight. It opened doors legitimate businessmen could not enter. It closed mouths police could not keep quiet. Jahun had inherited a machine built from legitimate money, criminal influence, fear, and old alliances. By the time Amani understood that, she was already sitting 10 feet from him. His eyes found her immediately. The recognition was almost unsettling. He remembered her face despite the blood loss, despite the water, despite the sedatives. Jahun wanted to know whether anyone had returned her coat. Imani told him no. He asked whether anybody had questioned her about receiving something from him. They had. That answer disturbed him. Then she told him his mother had tried to pay her. Jahun asked whether she took the money. Imani looked at him as though he had personally offended her. No. Something close to respect appeared in his expression. Then the pain beneath his ribs tightened. Imani stepped forward before catching herself. He noticed. He noticed almost everything. Jahun told her to go home. Then he told her not to go alone. Imani pointed out that she had survived 3 years in Seoul without a Mafia escort. His eyes sharpened. She had guessed correctly. Whatever the Kong family's public face looked like, this was not an ordinary wealthy household. Imani then repeated the sentence he had whispered beside the river. The first person who calls me family. Jahun's face became completely still. That was the first time she saw genuine fear in him. He told her to forget it. She refused. Then she asked the question that made the monitor beside him begin ticking faster. Had his own family put him in the river? Jahun did not answer. A doctor entered before he had to. The medication pulled him back under. But before his eyes closed, he told Imani once more to find her coat. That single detail followed her home. Neka Okoye opened the apartment door before Imani finished putting the key in the lock. One look at her daughter was enough. The borrowed clothes, the damp hair, the unfamiliar black sedan visible from the corridor. Neka ordered her inside. Imani told her mother about the river, the injured stranger, the private clinic, and the envelope of money. She left out only the warning. Neka listened until the end. Then she stared at her daughter as if deciding whether 30 years old was still young enough to ground somebody. You went into freezing water after a stranger. He was drowning, and now men in black cars are bringing you home. Imani knew how bad it sounded. Neka pointed out that she had not made it sound bad. It had arrived bad. Despite herself, Imani laughed. Then she began shaking, not dramatically, just enough for her mother to see that the fear had finally caught up with her. Neka held her until it stopped. By morning, Imani tried to return to normal life. Normal life did not cooperate. She worked as a logistics compliance coordinator for a mid-sized export company. Her days were filled with customs codes, declarations, cargo weights, insurance values, and shipping documents. She liked paperwork because paperwork obeyed rules. People did not. That morning, rumors spread through Seoul business circles that somebody connected to Kong Holdings had been involved in a violent incident near the river. No newspaper mentioned Imani. Not yet. At 11:14, Jahun called from his hospital bed. He wanted to know whether her coat had been returned. It had not. He told her to ask for it. Imani immediately knew the coat mattered for another reason. Jahun refused to explain. He only told her not to give it to anyone once she had it. Then he ended the call. That afternoon, Doyen appeared in the lobby of Imani's office, carrying a garment bag. He looked so severe that 3 receptionists watched him as though federal investigators had arrived. The coat had been cleaned and repaired. Doyen also told her something more important. Jahun's car had not simply crashed. Another vehicle had struck it. The driver had escaped. Someone had forced Jehun off the road. Doyen advised her to avoid her usual riverside route. By then, his suspicion of Imani was beginning to shift. He still did not trust her fully. Doyen trusted very few people, but he had spent a career studying motives, and Imani's behavior did not fit the one the Kong family wanted assigned to her. She had refused money. She had not contacted the press. She had not asked to see Jehun again. She had not even kept the clothes the family provided. The inconvenient possibility was that she really had done exactly what she claimed. Seen a drowning stranger. Saved him. Wanted nothing. For Han Mira, that possibility was difficult. For Doyen, it was useful. For Jehun, it was becoming personal. The first direct threat reached Imani 2 nights later. She stepped out of the elevator on her apartment floor and saw damage beside the lock. Someone had tried to force the door. Not very hard. That was what made it frightening. The marks were obvious enough to be found. A message rather than a burglary. Then the stairwell door opened. A man in a baseball cap stepped into the corridor. He saw Imani. She saw him. For a second, neither moved. Then he turned and disappeared through the stairwell. Imani did not follow. She called the police. Then Neka. Then Doyen. He arrived before the officers finished documenting the scene. Doyen studied the damage and understood immediately what it meant. Someone wanted Imani frightened. 20 minutes later, the problem became worse. Neka called. A gray vehicle had been following her for several blocks after work. She had entered a pharmacy. The car remained outside. Doyen sent men before the police patrol reached her. By midnight, the distinction between Jehun's danger and Imani's life no longer existed. His enemies had found her. The next afternoon, Jehun came to her apartment personally. He should still have been recovering. The stiffness in his movements made that obvious. Yet there he stood in a dark suit, looking at the damaged lock as though he had expected this from the moment he first saw Imani beside the river. Doyen accompanied him. Neka stood behind Imani. For a man feared by criminals and obeyed by executives, Jehun's entrance into the Okoye apartment was remarkably humble. He waited until Neka invited him inside. Then he told Imani she needed to leave the apartment temporarily. She refused. He explained the risk. She pointed out that the risk existed because of him. Jehun accepted that without excuse. That mattered to Neka. It did not make her trust him, but it made her listen. Jehun had a private residence known only to his closest security team. He offered to move Imani and Neka there until he identified the threat. Imani heard only one thing beneath the offer: control. She told him he was making decisions for everybody because fear made uncertainty intolerable to him. Jehun did not like the accusation, mostly because it was accurate. He adjusted. Instead of ordering, he offered choices. A secure apartment for Neka. His private residence for Imani. Security inside or outside. They could leave whenever they wanted. He was asking, not commanding. Neka chose to remain with her daughter. I have already raised her once. I'm not starting again because somebody owns black cars. Jehun almost smiled. Neka caught him. That smile disappeared quickly. 3 hours later, Imani packed one suitcase. Jehun's private residence surprised her. She expected excess. Instead, she found restraint. Stone, glass, dark timber, a house hidden behind trees, and security systems built into the architecture. No visibility, no gold furniture, no trophies announcing criminal power. The place felt less like a mansion and more like a fortress designed by a man who hated admitting he lived inside one. Neka understood it immediately. He lives like someone waiting for siege. Jehun heard her. I usually am. For the first 2 days, Imani tried to avoid him. She worked remotely from the dining room. Neka took control of the kitchen after discovering that Jehun's refrigerator contained ingredients expensive enough to impress a chef and almost nothing resembling food a normal human being would actually prepare. Doing came and went. Jehun disappeared into his study for hours despite medical instructions to rest. The atmosphere remained tense until one night at 2 in the morning. Imani found Jehun standing in the kitchen trying to open a soup container with one hand because the injury at his ribs made using both painful. She watched him struggle longer than kindness required. Then she offered help. Jehun blamed the lid. Imani opened it immediately. For the first time, the man who had seemed almost mythically dangerous became ridiculous. She told him not to start a war with the manufacturer. He almost laughed. Then they ate Neka's soup in the kitchen while the rest of the house slept. No security meeting, no family, no river. Just two people who had no sensible reason to be comfortable together. That was the beginning. Not love, not even trust. Recognition. Imani began noticing details that did not fit Jehun's reputation. He never raised his voice when people obeyed him. He did not need to. He remembered the names of injured employee spouses. He paid medical costs without attaching his name to the gesture. He never sat with his back to a door. He straightened his cuff whenever he was about to say something he did not want to say. Jehun noticed things too. Imani drank tea without sugar and added too much ginger whenever she was stressed. She needed to know the route before entering a car. She became more formal when angry. She hated receiving gifts, but accepted information immediately because information preserved her independence. She was not fearless. That impressed him more. Fearless people sometimes mistook recklessness for courage. Imani felt fear and acted anyway. Jehun had spent years surrounded by people who either wanted something from him or feared losing something to him. Imani belonged to neither category. That made her difficult to predict, and therefore difficult to ignore. His family noticed. Han Mira noticed first. She arrived at Jehun's residence for dinner with Kong Seongo, Jehun's younger brother Min-jae, his sister Soo-jin, and Yoon Chaiwon. Chaiwon belonged to the world Mira understood. Educated, wealthy, connected, raised among families whose marriages often looked suspiciously like corporate mergers. Nobody had ever formally promised Jehun to her. That technicality had mattered less before Imani existed. Dinner began politely. Politeness lasted 12 minutes. Chaiwon tested Imani first. She asked about her apartment, then about her salary, then whether seeing Jehun's home had changed her expectations. The words sounded casual. The meaning was not. Mira joined the attack by suggesting gratitude did not require Imani to remain near her son. Min-jae watched with faint amusement. Seongo studied Imani as though assessing an unexpected variable in a negotiation. Soo-jin became increasingly uncomfortable. Jehun became increasingly still. Imani understood the room before anyone finished saying what they meant. They had decided the story already. Poor foreign woman saves wealthy Korean man. Wealthy man becomes grateful. Woman sees opportunity. Everything after that was merely evidence they intended to force into the conclusion. Imani did not defend herself for long. She looked directly at Mira. Perhaps you spent too long around people who can be bought. That was enough. Nobody at the table moved. Myra's face tightened. Seongo's interest sharpened. Min-jae stopped smiling. Imani stood and left. Jehun did not follow. For a moment, that hurt more than she expected. Then his voice traveled through the closed dining room door. If anyone in this family insults her in my house again, they leave before she does. Imani stopped in the corridor. Nobody answered him. She continued walking before anyone could see the effect those words had on her. What Imani did not know was that Min-jae noticed Jehun's reaction too. For Min-jae, that dinner changed the threat calculation. Until then, Imani had been inconvenient. Now she had influence. Influence over Jehun was more dangerous than evidence Min-jae could not find. The following morning, Imani became a public target. Photographs appeared online. One showed her entering Jehun's private medical residence. Another showed her at his home. A gossip site asked who the mysterious foreign woman was. Social media supplied an answer before facts could. Gold digger, opportunist, secret lover. Somebody claimed she knew Jehun's route and had deliberately positioned herself near the river. Another account claimed the Kong family had already paid her millions. Her photograph from the company website spread across forums. People who had never met her debated whether she had always planned to marry rich. The cruelty was almost casual. That made it harder to endure. Her manager suggested she stay away from the office until things calmed down. Imani asked why she was being hidden when she had done nothing wrong. He had no useful answer. She sat alone in Jehun's living room reading strangers explain her motives to one another. One comment received thousands of likes. Of course she saved him. She knew exactly who he was. Imani laughed. The sound came out brittle. Jehun entered and saw the phone. His first instinct was exactly what she expected. Remove the articles. Threaten the publishers. Erase the problem. Imani refused. The argument that followed became one of the first times Jehun was forced to confront the difference between power and truth. He could make individual stories disappear. He could not control what people wanted to believe. Imani told him the attacks would stop only when someone exposed the truth. Jehun's face changed. For a moment, she saw shame. That was when he finally admitted part of what his family really was. The Kong Empire was both legitimate and criminal. Its lawful businesses existed beside an old network of influence, violence, and illegal operations built long before Jehun became its head. 12 years earlier, Sujin had been kidnapped by rivals trying to force Seongo into surrendering territory. Jehun had been preparing to leave Korea for graduate school. He came home instead. He helped get his sister back. Then he stayed. What he became afterward saved his family. It also trapped him inside the role his father needed. Imani asked whether he still believed everything he had done could be called protection. Jehun answered immediately. No, that honesty complicated her anger. It did not absolve him. It made him harder to dismiss. She asked what he had been doing the night someone forced his car into the river. Jehun refused to tell her. He was protecting his secret. Imani told him not to expect trust while withholding the truth. Jehun answered with something she remembered for weeks. He did not expect trust. He expected her to judge him by what he did next. Later that night, inside his locked study, Jehun discovered the reason the danger around Imani had escalated. A concealed safe stood open. The encrypted data drive he had carried before the river was gone. Doyen had searched the car. Nothing. Divers had checked the embankment. Nothing. Jehun remembered almost nothing from the seconds before he lost consciousness. But he remembered Imani, her face above him, her hands trying to keep him alive. The coat pressed against him while she dragged him out. He began to suspect he had hidden the drive with her. Doyen reached the same conclusion. Neither told Imani. They were already too late. The drive was inside her coat. Imani found it the following morning. The repaired lining did not sit correctly near one hip. She pressed her fingers against it. Something hard shifted beneath the fabric. A small waterproof device dropped onto the bed. Jehun's warnings suddenly made sense. The coat. Do not give it to anyone. Imani went straight to his study. The moment he saw the drive in her hand, his face lost color. He locked the door. Then he asked who else knew. Nobody. That answer relieved him and frightened her. Jehun did not want to show her the contents. Knowing would increase her risk. Imani reminded him that somebody had already attacked her home and followed her mother. She was already at risk. Keeping her ignorant would not undo that. Jehun knew she was right. He opened the files. Shipping records filled the screen. Shell companies. Bank transfers. Warehouse leases. Photographs. Recorded conversations. Imani recognized port codes before she understood the larger meaning. Busan. Incheon. Rotterdam. Lagos. Thema. Duopen. Then she saw a customs manifest. Something about it bothered her. The commodity classification did not match the declared cargo weight. She pointed it out. Jehun looked at her. That was the first time he fully understood how useful her profession might be. Imani opened another manifest. Then another. The pattern repeated. False classifications. Suspicious insurance values. Containers redirected through short-lived subsidiaries. Everything had been designed to appear ordinary unless somebody knew exactly what inconsistencies to look for. Imani did. Then Jehun opened a folder containing photographs. Passports. Missing person notices. Warehouse surveillance. Imani understood before he spoke. People. The organization was moving people. Her stomach turned. Jehun explained that he had discovered evidence of the trafficking network 8 months earlier. Parts of the Kong organization had been running it through shipping companies connected to Minji's allies. Jehun had tried to shut it down quietly. The deeper he looked, the larger it became. His father knew money was flowing through illegal operations and had repeatedly warned Jehun not to expose anything that might destroy the family. Whether Siongo understood the full scope at first remained unclear. What became clear later was worse. Once he knew, he still chose the family. The night of the river, Jehun had been carrying the evidence to an intermediary connected to a prosecutor. Someone learned about the meeting. He was attacked before reaching it. Stabbed, chased, forced from the road. The final minutes remained fragmented in his memory. But at some point after Imani pulled him from the water, instinct had told him the arriving cars might contain traitors. He hid the drive in the lining of her coat. Now, Imani understood the smear campaign differently. The cruelty had not been only class prejudice. It had strategic value. If the woman from the river later appeared with evidence against the Kong family, the public had already been trained to see her as greedy. If she accused them, people would say she wanted money. If she produced documents, people would say she was blackmailing Jehun. If she disappeared, perhaps nobody would ask enough questions. Imani looked at him. They needed everyone to think I was lying before I even knew the truth. Jehun met her eyes. Yes. That answer changed the story. If you're still here, then I know Imani and Jehun have pulled you into this story. Subscribe if it has drawn you in, and share it with a sister, best friend, partner, or somebody who loves stories about love surviving impossible circumstances. And in the comments, write, I am enjoying it. Thank you for staying with them, because the woman this family tried to dismiss as a gold digger was about to become the person most capable of understanding the evidence they were desperate to bury. Jehun wanted Imani removed from the investigation. She refused, not because she had suddenly become reckless, because the evidence contained a language she understood. Shipping patterns, classification codes, routing inconsistencies. She could see connections Jehun's investigators had missed. For the next several hours, they worked side by side. The relationship between them changed during those hours more than either admitted. Jehun stopped treating Imani like someone he needed to move out of danger. He began treating her like a partner capable of making decisions inside it. Imani stopped seeing only the criminal empire surrounding him. She saw the man dismantling the structure that had given him power. Neither transformation was complete. That was why it felt believable. Doyen entered after midnight and discovered Imani still working. His surprise lasted less than a second. By then, he had learned not to underestimate her twice. He brought new information. The smear campaign had 2 sources. Chaewon's family office had paid a public relations consultant connected to the first gossip photographs. But a separate image had come from a Kong security employee reporting to Min-jae. Same attack, different motives. Chaewon wanted humiliation. Min-jae wanted discrediting. For Imani, the distinction mattered. She refused to make every person who disliked her part of the same conspiracy. That refusal would later protect her credibility. She did not need to exaggerate the truth. The truth was already devastating enough. Over the following days, The emotional distance between Imani and Jehun narrowed, not through declarations, through behavior. Jehun remembered her tea. Imani noticed he moved meetings when Neka needed medical appointments, so Imani could accompany her. He stopped sending security officers into spaces she considered private. She stopped assuming every act of protection concealed control. He saw her send food to an injured driver because the man's wife had recently given birth. She saw him quietly pay for the university tuition of another employee's daughter without allowing the family to know where the money came from. Jehun had spent years making people afraid of him. Imani kept discovering the places where he had been kind without wanting credit. That was dangerous. Kindness did not erase what he had done, but gave her a reason to believe the man could become more than the role he inherited. Sujin helped Imani understand the origin of that role. They walked together through the winter garden one afternoon. Sujin admitted that her mother feared Imani, not because of poverty, because Jehun listened to her. Imani found that difficult to believe. She and Jehun argued constantly. Sujin explained that this was precisely why she knew. Jehun did not argue with people he considered irrelevant. He dismissed them. Then Sujin told Imani about the kidnapping. At 24, Jehun had been preparing to leave Korea. He had an acceptance letter from university in London. A different future. Then men connected to a rival organization took Sujin. 11 hours later, she came home alive. Jehun never left. He became the son Seongo needed. Sujin still carried guilt over that. He protected me, she admitted, but nobody asked him to lose himself doing it. The sentence stayed with Imani. It also complicated Han Mira. Mira had spent years watching one child nearly die and another turn himself into a weapon to prevent it happening again. Her cruelty came partly from fear. That did not excuse it, but shallow villains were easier to hate than frightened mothers who made terrible choices. The next major shift came when Jehun returned from meeting his father. He had a split lip, blood-marked one cuff. His father had ordered him to stop the investigation. Min-jae denied involvement. Seongo made his position clear. If exposing the trafficking network threatened the Kong Empire, then the investigation itself had become the greater threat. That was the moment Jehun stopped wondering whether his father could be persuaded. Seongo had chosen. So did Jehun. He would expose everything. Imani understood what that meant. His father could face prison. His brother could be destroyed. Jehun's own name might never recover. He might lose legitimate businesses along with criminal ones. She asked whether he was prepared. Jehun said yes. Then she asked what happened if he did nothing. Neither needed to answer. Somewhere, another person would disappear into the same network. Imani reached for his hand. It was the first time she touched him without necessity. No river, no wound, no danger forcing contact. Jehun looked down. He did not close his hand immediately. He waited. Imani did. That mattered. Their first kiss came days later. It happened in Jehun's study after he showed her an old photograph. Jehun at 23. Sujin beside him. Airport behind them. A folded university acceptance letter visible in his hand. He was smiling. Not the restrained, almost smiling Imani had learned to recognize. A young man's open happiness. Imani teased him about looking annoying. Jehun laughed. A real laugh. The sound disarmed her more efficiently than danger ever had. Then he admitted he had forgotten that version of himself existed. Imani told him she had not. He did not understand. She explained that a man who was completely gone would never have tried to expose his own empire. The space between them changed. Jehun lifted one hand toward her face. Stopped. Waited. Imani closed the distance. The kiss was quiet. Careful. When they separated, she told him it was a terrible idea. Jehun agreed. For once, agreement did not help. Neither knew that Min-jae was already moving. Inside a separate Kong property, Min-jae had received confirmation that Jehun's people were feeding false information through compromised security channels. He understood someone was testing him. He also understood something more dangerous. Jehun had begun sharing decisions with Imani. Min-jae had spent his life beneath his brother's shadow. Jehun was older, more respected, more feared. Seongo trusted him with the real weight of the family, even when the two men disagreed. Min-jae smiled more easily than Jehun. He charmed more people. Yet when consequences arrived, everybody still looked to Jehun. Resentment had become ambition years earlier. The trafficking network gave Min-jae something that finally belonged to him. Money beyond family oversight. Loyal men. Routes Jehun did not control. Power his brother had not granted. Jehun's investigation threatened all of it. Imani threatened something else. She was giving Jehun a reason to imagine life after the Kong Empire. That made her more dangerous than Min-jae first understood. The false evidence location proved his fear. Doyen deliberately allowed a rumor to travel through compromised channels suggesting Jehun had hidden the river evidence in a storage property outside Seoul. Min-jae sent men there within hours. They found nothing, but Doyen recorded enough movement to confirm Min-jae was searching. Jehun confronted his brother at the family office. Min-jae denied everything. Seongo ordered both men to stop tearing the family apart. Then Min-jae made one mistake. He mentioned civilians, suggested that people close to Jehun could become casualties if he continued confusing emotion with strategy. He did not say Neka's name. He did not need to. Jehun moved toward him. Min-jae wanted the punch. He wanted Jehun angry enough to prove Imani had destabilized him. Jehun realized it. He stepped back. Min-jae smiled. You just confirmed she matters. Jehun looked at him. No, you confirmed she matters to you. For the first time, Min-jae stopped smiling. The next attack did not come with a weapon. It came through financial records. A gossip outlet published documents showing a transfer of 200 million won into an account bearing Imani's name. The account existed. Imani had never opened it. Someone had used copied identification. Within hours, the accusation changed from rumor to apparent fact. Now strangers did not simply believe Imani wanted money. They believed they had proof she received it. Her employer suspended her. Reporters appeared near Neka's workplace. People who had once ignored Imani suddenly remembered conversations that never happened. An old co-worker claimed Imani had always talked about marrying rich. The lie spread because it was entertaining. Truth moved more slowly. Toby Adebayo called from Busan. He had known Imani for years. He wanted names, lawyers, targets. Imani almost laughed when he threatened to sue half the internet. Then he asked whether she was safe. She looked toward the security detail beyond the glass. For the first time, she could not give him a convincing answer. Jehun wanted to fight publicly. Imani stopped him. If he defended her, they would call her his mistress. If he proved the bank transfer was fraudulent, people would claim he had paid someone to manufacture that proof. Every attempt to use Kong power would reinforce the story Min-jae wanted. The only answer large enough was the evidence itself, and releasing it meant destroying Jehun's family. Fear did what fear often did to him. It made Jehun controlling. He arranged documents that could move Imani and Neka out of Korea under new identities while prosecutors received the evidence. Doyen advised against it. Jehun ignored him. Then he presented the plan to Imani. She refused. Their argument was brief because neither position was complicated. Jehun believed distance could save her. Imani believed running would merely move the target. Jehun saw the woman he loved standing inside a danger created by his life. The fear became unbearable, so he made the worst decision available to him. He decided to make her want to leave. The next evening, with his family present, Jehun publicly ended their relationship. He chose every sentence carefully. Gratitude had distorted his judgment. Danger had created false intimacy. Imani had become a liability. Whatever she believed existed between them had never been real. Han Mira relaxed as he spoke. Min Jae watched with satisfaction. Sujin looked at her brother as though she wanted to stop him physically. Doyen knew exactly what Jehun was doing and hated him for it. Imani only knew she had trusted the wrong man. She asked one question. Was any of it real? Jehun looked directly at her. Everything inside him wanted to tell the truth. Instead, he gave her the lie he believed might save her. No, Imani nodded. Then she walked away. Jehun did not follow. That was the price of making the lie convincing. Later, alone in his study, he discovered that power was useless against the consequences of words he could not take back. Doyen entered once. He found Jehun sitting in darkness. Neither man discussed Imani. Doyen simply told him the exterior security around her apartment would remain. Jehun had publicly ended it. Doyen had no intention of obeying that part. For the first time in years, loyalty required disobedience. Imani returned home with Neka. Her mother did not ask whether she was all right. Neka knew better. People rarely answered that question honestly while still bleeding emotionally. She simply stayed close. The next morning, Imani began planning how to rebuild her life. By afternoon, that plan was irrelevant. She and Neka were leaving a grocery store when a delivery van stopped near the curb. Two men stepped out. One grabbed Neka. The other moved toward Imani. No disguises. No attempt to make it look accidental. Imani slammed a shopping cart into the second man's knees. He stumbled. She pulled at her mother. The first man tightened his grip. Neka drove her heel into his foot and twisted. He cursed. Imani struck the emergency alarm outside the store. The siren brought witnesses. Phones appeared. The men released Neka and ran. Doyen's plainclothes security arrived seconds too late to stop the van. Imani stood on the pavement staring at the red marks around her mother's wrist. Something changed inside her. Jehun's plan had failed. Leaving him had not protected them. Being humiliated had not protected them. Running would not protect them. Min Jae would continue until he believed the evidence could never reach anyone capable of hurting him. Imani made a decision. She was finished waiting for powerful men to decide where she should stand. She called Sujin, not Jehun. Then she called Doyen. The three of them met without Jehun's knowledge. That choice mattered. Up to then, the conflict had largely revolved around Jehun's actions. His investigation, his family, his enemies. Now Imani took control of the final movement herself. She understood the problem differently. The evidence could not go to one prosecutor. Siongo had connections. One investigation could be delayed. One file could disappear. One official could be pressured. They needed simultaneous exposure. Journalists, regulators, prosecutors, international law enforcement, shipping partners. Once the information existed in enough independent places, the family could no longer bury it. Doyen admitted Jehun had been considering something similar. Imani's anger returned. Then he admitted something else. The breakup had been staged. Jehun believed making Min Jae think Imani was no longer important would reduce the pressure on her. Imani stared at him. Her mother had nearly been abducted. Doyen admitted the obvious. The plan failed. That did not make Imani feel better. The revelation that Jehun loved her did not erase what he had done. It made the betrayal more complicated. He had broken her trust because he believed his fear gave him the right. He does not get to protect me by breaking me. Doyen agreed. That agreement ended whatever remained of his original suspicion toward her. From then on, he followed Imani's plan. Sujin provided access to the Kong Foundation's annual gala. The event was 3 days away. Politicians, executives, international investors, journalists. Every person the Kong family cared about impressing would be inside one ballroom. Imani saw the opportunity immediately. Min Jae and Seongo had spent years protecting the family through controlled information. She would force the truth into a room they could not control. Toby returned from Busan to help organize the evidence package. Not because he had secret intelligence skills, because Imani trusted him and needed someone outside the Kong network. She assembled the case carefully. Not a flood of incomprehensible documents. A story anyone could follow. One shell company. One false manifest. One suspicious route. One warehouse. One missing person. Then another. Payments linked to Minji's allies. Communications showing Ji-hoon's efforts to shut down the operation. Orders from Seongo's office stopping internal investigations once they threatened the family. And finally, the fraudulent account opened in Imani's name. Doyen suggested removing certain files that could implicate Ji-hoon in unrelated crimes. Imani refused. If we edit the truth to protect him, we're doing what his father did. Doyen said nothing after that. Meanwhile, Ji-hoon believed Imani was preparing to leave Korea. Soo-jin lied to him. Doyen withheld information. Neko proved. For a man accustomed to controlling intelligence, Ji-hoon had never been more effectively excluded. His attention remained on Seongo. The patriarch summoned him before the gala and announced that Min Jae would be elevated within Kong Holdings. Ji-hoon understood what his father was doing, rewarding loyalty to the family machine, punishing the son who threatened it. Seongo warned him that releasing the evidence would destroy his inheritance. Ji-hoon realized that threat no longer frightened him. He had already lost the future he once wanted. Then he had nearly lost his life. Then he had pushed away the woman who made another future imaginable. Inheritance suddenly seemed small. He told his father he had spent 12 years trying to return to a life Seongo had taken from him. Seongo insisted everything had been done for the family. Ji-hoon gave him the answer that ended the conversation. No, everything you did was to make sure the family survived you. The gala began at 7. By 7:15, the ballroom was full. Kong Holdings executives stood beside diplomats, investors, government officials, and foundation donors. Reporters waited near the stage. Hanmi Davor Ivori. Seongo wore black. Min Jae wore confidence. Chai-won arrived with her parents. Soo-jin came alone. Ji-hoon was nowhere to be seen. At 7:44, Min Jae received a message. Imani Okoye had entered the building. For the first time that evening, he stopped smiling. Imani did not arrive dressed like someone begging to belong. Neka had made sure of that. Before she left the apartment, her mother adjusted one shoulder of the dress and gave her a single instruction. Do not enter that room asking permission. Imani carried those words with her. The ballroom noticed immediately. Conversations weakened. Faces turned. Phones appeared. Han Mira went pale. Chai-won stared. Min Jae crossed the room first. He told Imani she should not be there. Imani had heard that sentence too many times. His family had told her she should not be near Ji-hoon. The internet told her she should not be believed. Ji-hoon told her she should not remain in danger. Now Min Jae told her she should not enter the room where his future was about to be announced. Imani looked at him. So it was the trafficking network. That was all it took. Fear appeared in Minji's face. Not anger, not contempt. Fear. Imani finally saw the real man beneath the easy smile. Min Jae reached toward her arm. Soo-jin stepped between them. Cameras were already turning. He stopped. Across the ballroom, Seongo recognized danger without yet understanding its shape. He signaled security. Doyen intercepted the first man before he reached Imani. The balance of power shifted quietly. At 8, Seongo stepped onto the stage. He spoke about legacy, responsibility, the future of the Kong family. Then he prepared to announce Minji's elevation. Imani's phone vibrated. Soo-jin had transferred control of the presentation system. Toby waited 2 streets away with a timed release package ready. If Imani failed to confirm safety, everything would go out automatically. Siongo reached a phrase about a new chapter. Imani pressed one button. The Foundation logo disappeared from the giant screen. A shipping manifest replaced it. Then another document. Then a warehouse photograph. Then the names of missing people. The room changed. Min Jae went white. Siongo turned. Hanmida stood. Imani walked toward the stage. Mira demanded to know what she was doing. Imani looked at the woman who had once tried to pay her to disappear. Telling the truth before your family decides what it should sound like. Security moved. Doyen stopped them. Phones lifted throughout the ballroom. Reporters began recording. Siongo met Imani at the bottom of the stage. He told her to turn it off. Imani refused. Siongo warned that she did not understand what she was destroying. For months, Imani had been told what she did not understand. The family, the danger, the money, the consequences. Now she understood more than any of them wanted. People had disappeared so the Kong name could remain protected. That made the name less valuable than the people. She stepped onto the stage. Imani did not make the speech about herself. That choice gave her credibility. She explained the documents. Why the cargo weights mattered. Why false commodity classifications mattered. How shell companies concealed rerouted containers. How identical insurance contacts connected supposedly unrelated exporters. How warehouse leases intersected with missing person records. One document after another transformed the room from confusion into horror. Then she displayed the bank transfer that had supposedly proven she was a gold digger. The account had been created using identification copied after she was taken to a Kong-controlled medical residence. The payment appeared only after she refused Han Myra's envelope. Mira closed her eyes. The insult she had once considered harmless now sat inside a visible pattern of intimidation. Imani showed Chaewon's role too. Only what could be proven. Payment for gossip photographs. No false accusation of trafficking. No dramatic invention. That precision destroyed Chaewon's ability to dismiss her as emotional. Then Min Jae moved. He crossed behind the stage and grabbed the control laptop. The main screen went black. For half a second, he thought he had stopped the exposure. Then phones throughout the ballroom began vibrating. Journalists received the files. So did prosecutors, regulators. International Contact. Toby had triggered the release. Min Jae stared at Imani. What did you do? She looked at him. Made sure you couldn't solve this by deleting a file. He lunged toward her. Doyen intercepted him. Min Jae struck first. Security personnel moved. Some toward Doyen. Some toward Min Jae. Sujin shouted. Siongo ordered everyone to stop. Nobody obeyed him. For the first time in decades, Kong Siongo's authority vanished while he was still standing in the room. Then the ballroom doors opened. Jehun entered alone. The chaos quieted by degrees. Imani saw him. Her chest tightened despite everything. For 1 second, she did not know which Jehun had arrived. The man from the kitchen. The man from the river. The criminal heir. The man who kissed her. The man who lied to her face because fear convinced him cruelty was protection. Jehun looked at the evidence. Then at Imani. Understanding arrived. She had done what he kept believing only he could do. She had taken control. Siongo stepped into his path. He told his son the situation could still be contained. Jehun looked at him. No. One word. Enough. Then he turned toward the cameras. Jehun identified himself publicly and acknowledged that the companies connected to the trafficking network operated beneath an organization he controlled. Han Mira stared at him. Siongo warned him to stop. Jehun continued. He had discovered the network 8 months earlier. He had begun gathering evidence. He had failed to dismantle it quickly enough. Crimes occurred under his authority. He would answer for that. Imani felt something tighten in her throat. This was what accountability looked like. Not innocence invented after the fact. Not a powerful man presenting himself as the victim of his own empire. Responsibility. Then Jehun named the conspiracy, the internal orders, the buried investigations, the attempt on his life. Min-jae shouted that none of it could be proven. Jehun removed a phone. Doyen had recovered one final recording earlier that evening. Min-jae's voice filled the ballroom. A conversation with one of the men who arranged the collision. Details only the attacker could have known. The smile disappeared from Min-jae's face. National police entered. Then prosecutors. Not Kong security. Not family loyalists. The dynasty began collapsing beneath chandeliers installed to celebrate its legitimacy. Min-jae did not go quietly. He accused Jehun of betrayal, called Su-jin ungrateful, called Doyen a servant. Then he turned on Imani. He asked whether she really believed Jehun had chosen her. Imani looked at him. This was never about being chosen. That was the last sentence Min-jae heard from her before officers took him away. The aftermath did not become magically simple. Min-jae faced charges connected to trafficking, financial crimes, conspiracy, and Jehun's attempted murder. Seongo was not arrested immediately. Power rarely disappears with theatrical speed. His lawyers arrived. Calls were made. Old relationships were tested. But the evidence had been distributed too widely. Accounts were frozen. Search warrants followed. Board members resigned. Officials who once attended Kong dinners suddenly struggled to remember his phone number. Investigators uncovered orders from Seongo's office instructing managers to suppress internal reports once Jehun's investigation threatened the family's reputation. Whether Seongo created the trafficking network became less important than what he did after learning it existed. He protected the empire. People paid the price. Han Mira faced a different consequence. No criminal charge connected her to the trafficking operation. Her punishment was more personal. She had spent weeks treating Imani as a threat because admitting the truth about her family would have been more painful. Several days after the gala, Mira came to Imani's apartment alone. No driver beside her. No perros. No envelope. Neka opened the door. She studied Mira for several seconds. If you came to insult my daughter again, I have a kettle. Mira did not understand whether that was a joke. Neka did not explain. Imani appeared behind her mother. Mira said she had come to apologize. Imani had imagined that moment. In imagination, it had felt triumphant. In reality, it felt tired. Mira admitted she judged Imani before knowing anything about her. She admitted trying to pay her. She admitted believing every woman near Jehun must want something because that was how the people around her family usually behaved. Imani listened. Then she asked why the apology had taken so long. Mira looked down. For weeks, she had believed Imani was pulling Jehun away from the family. Only after the gala had she accepted the opposite. Jehun had already been drowning inside that family. Imani merely refused to let him pretend otherwise. The river returned to Imani's mind. The hand disappearing beneath black water. The warning. The blood. The second meaning landed hard. Imani did not forgive Mira immediately. Apologies could begin repair. They could not erase injury. She told Mira something else instead. She did not need the Kong family's permission to care about Jehun. And if there was ever to be anything between them again, the family would never define it. Mira accepted that. For once, no argument followed. Chaewon's apology came weeks later. She admitted paying for the first photographs. Her motive was not trafficking. It was pride. For years, both families had treated the possibility of marriage between Chaewon and Jehun as nearly inevitable. Jehun never promised it. Chaewon built part of her identity around the assumption anyway. Then Imani appeared. No pedigree. No family alliance. No hunger for status. And Jehun looked at her differently. Jealousy became cruelty. Imani listened, then asked whether Chaewon would have stopped if she had known Min-jae was using the same rumors to protect a trafficking operation. Chaewon did not answer quickly. Eventually, she said she hoped she would have. Imani nodded. She hoped so too. Forgiveness did not arrive that day. Jehun's consequences were heavier. He surrendered records, cooperated with prosecutors, testified against people he had once protected, gave investigators access to company structures they would never have understood from outside. And he accepted that exposing Min Jae did not absolve his own history. Some crimes committed under his authority remained his responsibility. For months, newspapers debated what he was: whistleblower, criminal, victim, traitor, reformer. Jehun stopped trying to control the labels. That was another form of change. His first public statement contained no attempt to make himself innocent. He acknowledged responsibility. Imani noticed. It mattered. Not enough to undo the lie he had told her. Enough to make repair possible. They did not reunite immediately. That mattered even more. After the gala, Jehun tried to speak to her. Imani refused. 2 days later, he called. She did not answer. A week later, he sent a message. No flowers, no gifts, no security convoy outside her apartment. 6 words. You were right. I should have trusted you. Imani read it. She did not reply. Another week passed. Then another. Jehun did something difficult for a man accustomed to solving problems through action. He waited. Imani rebuilt her own life. Her employer offered to reinstate her once the fake account was exposed. She declined. The company that had hidden her during the scandal now wanted photographs beside the woman who helped expose an international criminal network. Imani had no interest. Instead, she accepted work with an independent logistics compliance firm assisting investigations into shell shipping companies, trafficking routes, and sanctions evasion. The salary was better. The purpose was better. Neka returned to her ordinary routines. Toby stayed in Seoul long enough to make sure Imani remembered that surviving a mafia conspiracy did not eliminate the need for lunch. Soo-jin became a genuine friend. Doyen helped investigators dismantle the criminal side of the Kong security structure while rebuilding legitimate operations separately. And Seongo began losing the thing he valued most: control. For months after the gala, Jehun visited his father at the estate. The house looked different. Rooms had been sealed by investigators. Staff had disappeared. The long dining room, where Imani had once been humiliated, stood unused. Seongo told his son he had destroyed his inheritance. Jehun looked around. Once, that accusation would have terrified him. Now it sounded almost meaningless. Seongo asked whether Imani had given him freedom. Jehun said no. That surprised his father. She showed me I was still capable of choosing it. Seongo asked what would happen when Imani eventually left him. Jehun thought about the possibility, then answered calmly. The choice would still be mine. For once, Seongo had nothing useful to say. Jehun left. 6 months after the night at the river, Imani received another message. Jehun would be at the riverside the following afternoon at 4. She did not owe him an answer. She did not owe him her time. He only wanted the opportunity to apologize properly. Imani stared at the message long enough for Neka to notice. Her mother advised her with irritating simplicity. If she wanted to hear him, go. If she did not, stay home. Imani asked whether that was really all the advice she had. Neka wondered whether drums would improve it. Then she became serious. Do not go because he is powerful. Do not stay away because his family hurt you. Decide what you want when fear and pride are both quiet. The following afternoon, Jehun stood beside the same river where Imani had pulled him from the water. Winter had loosened its grip on Seoul. The river looked calmer, almost ordinary. Jehun heard footsteps behind him. He turned. Imani was walking toward him. No bodyguards followed her. None followed him. For several seconds, they simply looked at each other. He seemed thinner, less armored. No suit, no visible security. Imani stopped a few feet away. She told him he looked healthier. Jehun suggested she sounded disappointed. It was the first joke between them in months. The faint smile did not erase the hurt. It reminded them both that something remained beneath it. Jehun apologized, not for loving her, for deciding that love gave him permission to choose for her. He admitted he had protected her body by taking away her agency. He had used the things he knew would hurt because he believed pain would make her leave. Fear made control feel righteous. It was not. Imani listened. That was the apology she needed. Not an explanation of why he had done it. An acknowledgement of what he had actually done. She told him the public rejection had not merely made her leave. It made her believe the person she trusted had used intimacy as a weapon. Jehun accepted that. No defense. No request to move past it quickly. Then he thanked her, not for rescuing him, for refusing to make his redemption the center of the trafficking exposure. She had done it for the victims. For Neka. For herself. For the truth. Jehun understood that now. Imani looked toward the river. For months, she had imagined this conversation ending in anger. The truth was quieter. She still loved him. She admitted it. Jehun's breathing changed. Only slightly. Imani noticed anyway. But love did not mean returning to what they had. Jehun agreed. He did not want what they had either. That relationship had grown inside fear, secrecy, and danger. He wanted to discover who they were when nobody was trying to kill them. Imani considered him. That sounded less exciting. Jehun was prepared to risk it. She laughed. The sound crossed the water. He looked at her as though 6 months had been worth waiting for just to hear it again. Imani gave him one condition. If he ever decided what was best for her without asking again, she would personally return him to the river. Jehun considered that disproportionate. Imani reminded him she already knew where the emergency ladder was. This time he laughed. A real one. Then Imani reached for his hand. Jehun closed his fingers around hers. They walked along the river. Not toward a mansion. Not toward a waiting car. Just forward. Their relationship grew differently the second time. Slower. More deliberate. Jehun learned to ask before solving. Imani learned that accepting help did not automatically mean surrendering independence. They argued, sometimes badly, but fear stopped being a weapon. Neither threatened abandonment to win. Jehun continued cooperating with prosecutors. Some legal consequences tied to his own actions remained unresolved for a long time. Imani never asked anyone to excuse them. Neither did he. That was part of why she stayed. Not because Jehun became innocent. Because he finally became accountable. Sujin eventually took control of the legitimate charitable arm of the Kong Foundation after its board was completely restructured. She redirected money toward survivors, anti-trafficking organizations, and legal support programs. Han Mira resisted some of the changes, then quietly contributed part of her personal fortune. She never became an easy woman. Imani never required her to. Their relationship settled into cautious respect with occasional sharp edges. Nearly a year after the river, Mira invited Imani to lunch. Halfway through the meal, she carefully asked whether Imani and Jehun had discussed marriage. Imani nearly choked on her tea. The absurdity was irresistible. The same woman who once tried to pay her to disappear was now wondering whether Jehun intended to propose. Mira defended herself with unexpected calm. People were allowed to learn. Imani laughed so loudly that 2 nearby diners turned to look. Even Myra's mouth moved. Barely. It was progress. Minji's trial lasted months. Survivors testified. Jehun testified. Doin testified. Imani testified about the financial setup, the data drive, and the evidence trail. When Min Jae saw her enter the courtroom, he looked away. That gave her more satisfaction than anger would have. Siongo eventually accepted a plea agreement tied to obstruction, illegal financial operations, and deliberate suppression of criminal evidence. The Kong Empire did not vanish overnight. Real empires rarely do. Companies were sold. Networks fractured. Assets were seized. Men who believed their names placed them beyond consequence discovered that power weakened quickly once enough people stopped protecting it. Imani's name changed too. For months, one word had followed her: gold digger. Eventually other words replaced it: analyst, witness, whistleblower, survivor. None mattered as much as the name she had before Kang Jihun ever entered her life. Imani Okoye. The Kang family had never given her value. They had only tried to convince her that they had the authority to measure it. 2 years after the rescue, Jihun took her back to the river. Not the exact place where she found him. A little farther down, where cherry trees leaned over the pedestrian path. Jihun carried no security team, no extravagant gift, no black convoy, only a small ring box inside his coat. Imani noticed the outline almost immediately. She pretended not to. Jihun spent the next 20 minutes behaving so unnaturally that the secret became embarrassing. He commented on the weather twice, asked whether she was cold after she had already said no. Then he adjusted his cuff. Once, twice, 3 times. Imani stopped walking. She told him he was doing the cuff thing. His hand froze. 2 years had not made him better at lying to her. Jihun looked toward the river. The first time they stood beside that water, he had been bleeding, freezing, and afraid of the people coming to rescue him. Now there were no headlights behind them, no blood, no family waiting. Only the woman who had refused to abandon a stranger and later refused to surrender herself to the world that stranger came from. Jihun took out the ring. He did not begin with promises of perfection. He could not promise easy days. He could not promise his past would never affect their future. What he promised was simpler. He would never again confuse love with control. He would never make Imani's choices because fear made him believe he knew better. And every day she chose him, he would remember that choice belonged to her. Then he knelt. Imani Okoye, will you marry me? Her hands began trembling. After everything she had survived, that was what made them shake. Imani looked at the man she once pulled from Blackwater. The man whose family branded her a gold digger. The man who almost lost her because he tried to protect her without trusting her. The man who finally chose truth over inheritance and accountability over reputation. She said yes. Jihun's eyes closed for half a second. Relief crossed his face so openly that she laughed. Then she reminded him the river claws remained active. Jihun had assumed as much. Imani kissed him. Behind them, the river kept moving. Once, it had nearly taken Jihun's life. Later, his family almost destroyed Imani's name. Neither event became the final definition of who they were. Mercy became courage. Suspicion became trust. Trust broke. Choice rebuilt it. And when a powerful family tried to convince Imani that she was small because they could not imagine a woman helping without wanting something in return, she did not spend the rest of her life begging them to reconsider. She made their opinion irrelevant. Before you leave, Afro-K Timeless Stories, tell me what this story made you feel. Which moment between Imani and Jihun stayed with you most? And after everything his family did to her, would you have given Jihun another chance once you learned why he pushed her away, or would that betrayal have ended it for you? Share this story with the person it made you think about, and subscribe to Afro-K Timeless Stories for another complete Afro-Korean love story. Because wealth can disappear, families can turn against you, and fear can make people destroy what they do not understand. But real love, the kind that survives everything, is always worth the wait.